Good morning. This is the Keeping It Real Sunday School class from Cornerstone Baptist Church in Richland, Missouri. I'm Dr. Max Thornsberry, and I am the teacher. And my wife, Brenda, will be reading the scriptures this morning from the Authorized Version, the original King James Version of the Bible. We are going to be studying about prophecy today. We're going to be studying about proper worship today. We're going to be looking in the book of Isaiah. And Isaiah is a very long book in the Bible. It's right in front of the book of Jeremiah, which is another very long book in the Bible. Isaiah and Jeremiah had some contemporary prophecies, but Isaiah was gone, slaughtered by Manasseh when he was sawed asunder in a log. And Jeremiah is going to basically pick up his role and carry it all the way through the three captivities that come from Nebuchadnezzar. And they're going to finally capture Jeremiah, the ones that are wanting Egypt to be the ally and overcome God's plan, and parrot him off to Egypt, and he passes away in Egypt. Remember, it's the book of Jeremiah that Daniel reviewed. Whenever he saw that the captivity was only going to last 70 years, and he petitioned God to keep his word. And you'll remember that Cyrus the Mede paid for the large percentage, not large percentage, but about 50,000 of the captives in Babylon to come back and reestablish Jerusalem and the nation of Judah. We are prior to this time. Isaiah is going to prophesy among several kings, and most of them are good kings, believe it or not. He's going to start in the reign of Uzziah, who is classified in 2 Kings 15:1 as a good king. He's going to prophesy through Uzziah's reign. He didn't quite get the whole reign, but he says in the year Uzziah became king, he started this book of Isaiah. Jotham was a good king. Ahaz was a horrible king. Absolutely horrible. Hezekiah was the best king Judah ever had. And then comes his son Manasseh, who was the worst king Judah ever had. And the odd thing about it is Manasseh reigned 55 years, the longest reigning king. Why God did not take him out, I do not know. Well, I said all that to say this, as Pryor Pruitt would say. Said all that to say this: God is extremely upset with Judah. Why is he upset with Judah, Brenda, the nation of Judah?
Because they're worshiping idols.
Because they're worshiping idols. Not only are they worshiping idols, but they've set up idols in the temple to worship them. They're going through all the motions. You understand? They're giving sacrifices. They're doing all the motions, going through all the motions of worship, but then in between the times that they're playing like they're worshiping God, they're worshiping these idols. I do not understand. Of course, the Apostle Paul tells us these idols are fueled by demonic forces, that the demonic forces compel people to worship them. Idol worship is demon worship, is what the Apostle Paul said. But you have Moloch, who his whole purpose, you sacrificed your firstborn boy child or girl child to him, and he was supposed to provide you blessings. You have Baal, who is the god of thunderstorms, supposed to bring rain and help the harvest. You got Baal's so-called compatriot, Ashtaroth, which is the god of fertility. And you have these big orgies and all kinds of things to advocate for fertility and to worship these false gods. And they worshiped them up on high places, and they worshiped them around groves of trees. And they built things like totem poles to mark those places. Ahaz was a horrible king. His dad, Jotham, had tore all those things down. He put them all back up, and then Hezekiah tore them all down, and then Manasseh put them back up. God was not able to put a stop to idol worship in the nation of Judah and Benjamin, until he took them into captivity. When they came back 70 years later, there wasn't any more Molech and Ashtaroth and Baal worship. He'd already taken the northern kingdom out prior to the time of Isaiah coming on the scene. Maybe the latter part of their activity Isaiah was there, because he did prophesy against them. But he's already took 10 tribes of Israel and scattered them throughout the world through the Assyrian Empire. Now is left Benjamin and Judah. Why is it so important to God, Brenda, that he maintained the nation of Judah?
Because that's where Jesus is going to, his lineage is going to be.
Lion of the tribe of Judah. And in order for God's plan to be fulfilled, Judah must be maintained. Now, it goes through a lot of hard times to get there. So we're going to start today and get an idea of what God's opinion is of the nation of Judah and Benjamin. Going to Isaiah chapter 1 and reading the first 9 verses. I want you to know that Isaiah is pretty much split into 2 sections. The first 40 chapters, roughly 39, are God's ranting and raging against Judah. Now, God doesn't rant and rage, right? He is a perfect judge. But he's explaining to them why he's going to punish this nation. And then the last part of it, 40 to chapter 66, are chapters that deal with what's going to happen after they come back. That's where we get a lot of our messianic prophecies from. Understand that prophecy is not linear, meaning it's not in chronological order. He's writing down what God gives him when God gives it to him. So let's start out in Isaiah 1 through 9. I think we will come away with an understanding of why God is so very upset.
The vision of Isaiah the son of Amoz, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah. Hear, O heavens, and give ear, O earth. For the Lord hath spoken. I have nourished and brought up children, and they have rebelled against me. The ox knoweth his owner, and the ass his master's crib. But Israel doth not know, my people doth not consider. Ah, sinful nation, a people laden with iniquity, a seed of evildoers, children that are corrupters. They have forsaken the Lord. They have provoked the Holy One of Israel unto anger. They are gone away backward. Why should you be stricken any more? You will revolt more and more. The whole head is sick, and the whole heart faint. From the sole of the foot even unto the head there is no soundness in it, but wounds and bruises and putrefying sores. They have not been closed, neither bound up, neither mollified with ointment. Your country is desolate, your cities are burned with fire. Your land, foreigners devour it in your presence, and it is desolate, as overthrown by foreigners. And the daughter of Zion is left as a booth in a vineyard, as a lodge in a garden of cucumbers, as a besieged city. Except the Lord of hosts had left unto us a very small remnant, we should have been like Sodom, and we should have been like unto Gomorrah.
Gosh, I don't believe God's very happy, do you?
It appears not.
I don't think he's too happy. Let's read down a little further, Brenda, in Isaiah 1 and pick up verse 16 and read through 20.
Wash yourselves, make yourselves clean, and put away the evil of your doings from before mine eyes. Cease to do evil. Learn to do well. Seek justice. Relieve the oppressed. Judge the fatherless. And plead for the widow. Come now, and let us reason together, saith the Lord. Though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. Though they be red like crimson, they shall be as wool. If ye be willing and obedient, ye shall eat the good of the land. But if ye refuse and rebel, ye shall be devoured with the sword, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken it.
Now there comes a time in the book of Jeremiah where God goes from warning them about what's going to happen, like he is here, to saying, it's over. I'm done. Nebuchadnezzar's coming. You're going to be in captivity 70 years. The nation's going to be wiped out. No sense praying about it. That's one thing that got Jeremiah in such trouble with later kings. He said, it's over. It's done. It's finished. Prepare yourself. Don't fight. God is going to destroy this nation and take it into captivity. So at this point in the book of Isaiah, he is still warning. Come, let us reason together. That's a famous verse. So do you understand or get a picture of the status of the nation of Judah as Isaiah is writing this.
Oh, yes.
And primarily, this is occurring during Ahaz's reign, because although there was idol worship going on in other kings, good kings' service, it wasn't really until Jotham and Hezekiah that they actually destroyed all these idols. They took them and destroyed them. And then as soon as Ahaz became king, they reinstated him. As soon as Manasseh became king, reinstated him. Hezekiah even cut down all the trees up on these high places where they worshiped. So, I mean, this didn't grow back overnight. Years and years and years and years of warning by the Lord, until in about halfway through the book of Jeremiah, he says, I'm done.
Yeah, that's it.
I've had it. It's over. Judgment is on you. That's a dangerous thing,
It's very dangerous.
because God is a righteous hand. You'll notice how he says that he's going to judge them. You notice that? With the sword of a foreign army, the sword of a foreign hand, I am going to judge you. Also, God refers to these things several times, that we should apologize for destroying. He would have to apologize for destroying Sodom and Gomorrah if he did not exercise judgment on Judah. They had brought it upon themselves with lots of warning, lots of preaching, lots of prophecy, good kings to try to sway them back, and just like a dog, Jesus said, that returneth to his vomit, they could not get away from it. They would not leave it alone. Do you know that Manasseh actually offered his first son to Molech?
What a dad.
What a king.
Yeah.
What a king. I saw just this morning that Joe Biden had given an abortionist one of the highest medals in the land, and is seen kissing her cheek and hugging her, and he's supposed to be a Catholic.
Supposed to be. Those are the operative words right
Yeah.
there.
What's he say? Devout. Devout.
Yeah.
You understand what's going on in Israel right there is the same thing that's going on here. You have a ruler that proposes to worship, goes and takes the sacraments, if he can find somebody that'll give them to him, and at the same time lifts up, elevates those that are slaughtering little children up to the time of birth. It hasn't changed, has it?
No.
Mankind has not changed. Brenda turned to Isaiah chapter 40, and we're going to look at verse 21 through 24. What the Lord is going to be addressing in this prophecy coming from Isaiah is how he should be worshipped and why he should be worshipped. 21 through 24, Isaiah chapter 40.
Have you not known? Have you not heard? Hath it not been told to you from the beginning? Have you not understood from the foundations of the earth? It is he who sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are like grasshoppers, who stretcheth out the heavens like a curtain, and spreadeth them out like a tent to dwell in, who bringeth the princes to nothing. He maketh the judges of the earth as vanity. Yea, they shall not be planted, yea, they shall not be sown, yea, their stock shall not take root in the earth, and he shall also blow upon them, and they shall wither, and the whirlwind shall take them away like stubble.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, but other than that,
Wow. The problem that was occurring here is that they had priests and Levites administering all of the things that they did in the temple, sacrifices, oil offerings, grain offerings, all the law, for the most part, being fulfilled. And then these same people would go over here and bow down to Baal and bow down to Moloch and bow down to Ashtaroth. And the nation was doing the same thing because the leadership, the spiritual leadership, was showing no indication that you couldn't have it both ways.
well, you want to cover all our bases.
Yeah, now Jessica,
I know.
Haiti.
Here we go.
one foot in voodoo, one foot in Christianity, right?
Mm-hmm.
We saw it all the time.
Yep.
The churches that we dealt with up in the mountains, when someone came to know the Lord, they'd make them wait a full year to be baptized to prove that their conversion was real, and they'd put voodoo behind them.
Yes.
That's what's going on right here. They got a foot in both places.
Yep.
They want to make sure they're kind of all right with God, but they also want to make sure they're all right with the devil. They want to worship these demonic forces. At the same time, they're going to worship the Lord because these demonic forces convinced them that they're responsible for fertility and rain and crops and so on, just like they do in Haiti. They have 7 spirits they worship that all have some aspect of life they deal with. Well, I don't have to say too much about all of that because it's pretty self-explanatory, but God is trying to show them that He's the one in charge. He is the one that deserves worship. And then let's go and read 25 through 28, please.
To whom then will ye liken me, or shall I be equal? Saith the Holy One. Lift up your eyes on high, and behold who hath created these things, who bringeth out their host by number. He calleth them all by names, by the greatness of his might. For he is strong in power, not one faileth. Why sayest thou, O Jacob, and speakest, O Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord, and the justice due to me is passed away from my God? Hast thou not known, hast thou not heard, that the everlasting God, the Lord, the Creator of the ends of the earth, fainteth not, neither is weary? There is no searching of his understanding.
These Israelites or Judeans at this point in time had basically been doing this, putting a foot in both worlds, because they thought God wasn't addressing their needs, that He wasn't all-powerful, that Molech and Baal and Ashtaroth over here could do some things that God either wasn't doing or wouldn't do for them. That was that is their reasoning for worshiping these false gods and worshiping these demons. Notice that he says that He calleth them out by names, that bringeth out their host by number. This is indicating God's personal interest in everyone that puts their faith and trust in Him. This is terminology that, I used to work back in the 70s with small dairies, 60 cow dairies and under. Every cow had a name. That was before we even had plastic ear tags. They had chain numbers sometimes that hung around their neck. But everyone had a name. This was Judy, and this was Joan, and this was whatever. They all had a name. And so you go down, Jones has a retained placenta, Doc, and he'd go get Joan and bring her up there. Whenever we had our sheep, Brenda, how did we count those sheep?
Very badly.
We never did get a good count. We had little counters, didn't we?
Yes.
And as they would run by, we'd click it. And then 3 or 4 of them would run through at the same time, and then 2 or 3 would jump over the whole bunch. And never did get a perfect count on them, but that's what he's talking about. He's numbering the sheep. He's numbering his stock. He's using an agriculture reference here as a metaphor in order to prove that he is interested in each one of them individually.
Mind-boggling.
But he said back in the first part of Isaiah, the cattle and the sheep know their owner, and the donkey knows where his food comes from, and yet you don't. You don't act. You're worse than your livestock. They know who to come to. I'd step out there in that field about dark and holler, "Sheep, sheep!" And what would happen?
They would all come a-running.
Come running to me because they knew I was going to feed them, didn't they? Every one of them. If one stayed back, there was a problem. Had a sore foot or had a lamb. That's what he's talking about. I'm interested in you, so much so that I'm like the shepherd that's numbered his sheep and the livestock operator that's named his cattle. That's pretty neat, Brenda.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat. Now, there's some danger in that as well, because as the Apostle Paul tells the book of Hebrews, he chastises those that are his own. And so he is not going to let you run astray and amok without him dealing with it like a loving father. All right, Isaiah 29 through 31. Isaiah 40, verse 29 through 31.
He giveth power to the faint, and to those who have no might he increaseth strength. Even the youths shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint.
Now this is in particular, as he is prophesying, we're starting into the part of Isaiah in chapter 40 that is about the promises that God's going to give them if they will turn. And the promise of the Messiah, the promise of Messiah reigning in Jerusalem, and so on. And then he emphasizes, both back in the first part of Isaiah and again here, that God is interested in those that are weak, the widows, the orphan, those that can't take care of themselves. Many times you'll find it in Hosea, you'll find it in Micah, you'll find it in Malachi. The widows and orphans, you are neglecting the widows and orphans. You are not meeting the needs of those. What did James, the brother of Jesus, say? True religion is caring for the orphans and the widows. Well, let's go over to the New Testament, Brenda, to Colossians. And we're going to see how the Apostle Paul defines the traits of Christ in Colossians 1, 15 through 20. The point of our lesson today, although we've studied a lot of history, have a little better understanding of why this prophecy was written and why it is such strong words, because God is only going to tarry with this nation up till about halfway through Jeremiah, and he's going to say it's over. Paul is defining the attributes of Christ, who he is, because the Colossian church had been convinced that, like angels, had more power and authority than Christ. And particularly archangels, Michael. So the Apostle Paul is addressing this by identifying the nature of Christ. The reason I put this in this lesson is that it emphasizes for us why we are to worship. What purpose would we have to worship? Well, I can tell you the purpose we have is the almighty nature of God. He is in control of everything. He loves us. He has numbered us like we would number our sheep. He knows us by name. And so let's read how the Apostle Paul identifies the nature and the attributes, spiritual attributes of Christ our Savior. Colossians 1, 15 through 20.
Who is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation? For by him were all things created that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created by him and for him. And he is before all things, and by him all things consist. And he is the head of the body, the church, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in all things he might have the preeminence. For it pleased the Father that in him should all fullness dwell. And having made peace through the blood of his cross, by him to reconcile all things unto himself. By him, I say, whether they be things on earth or things in heaven.
Read on another verse or two.
And you that were once alienated and enemies in your mind by wicked works, you now hath he reconciled in the body of his flesh through death, to present you holy and unblameable and unreprovable in his sight.
That's far enough. The Apostle Paul is emphasizing who Christ is, that there's none ahead of Christ. He is, I think it starts out, preeminent. And he is head of all things. He is God Almighty. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, John writes in his Gospel. But then he goes on to say, nothing was created that was not created by him. And what does he say? All things were created by him, and for him. Is that enough to stimulate us to worship?
Well, it should. It should be.
Would it be enough to stimulate us to put all our faith and trust in God and not in the world?
Again, it should be.
Not in our own abilities, not in our education, not in our wealth, not in our family name, although that is extremely important.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Can't everybody be a Thornsberry.
No.
We could go on, could we not? I mean, there are lots of things that people worship. If they did not worship those things, they'd be in church every Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
By their actions, they show what they really believe and what they really worship.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's a bass boat. Maybe it's a deer stand. Maybe it's their own personal time. Don't go too far, you say?
Yes, I did.
Okay, am I meddling?
Medlin.
I'm meddling, all right. Well, do they not demonstrate their true feelings by their actions?
Well, yes.
They do. And I'm not saying people aren't going to miss church now and again, but we should be in a position where we want to express our worship, love, and praise of God by making sure we're regular attenders,
Mm-hmm.
that we're there with fellow Christians, that we lift up our voice together like they do in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
What did John say in Revelation chapter 4? And thousands upon thousands upon thousands united their voice in praise. Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, thou art worthy. Thou art worthy.
Oh my, I knew it was coming.
Well, I was going to sing the first part of Isaiah. I saw the Lord seated on the throne, exalted, and the train of his robe filled the temple with glory. See, I know some of these songs. I got to tell you, when we start this nursing home ministry, I may do the singing. I may lead the singing. Won't that be great? I bet they'll
Good thing
like
it'd
it.
just be once a year.
Well, I think Isaiah, in giving to us the exact words of God as they were given to him, demonstrate clearly that God is a jealous God. He wants no other gods before him. He wants us to demonstrate our love and worship of him by taking care of those that are less fortunate. That is true religion.
Mm-hmm.
See you next week.